December 2024, one of the largest drug smuggling operations ever uncovered in the United Kingdom finally collapsed. For years, an organized crime group quietly imported heroin, cocaine, amphetamines, and cannabis into Britain on an industrial scale. Their secret? Shipping containers filled with onions, garlic, and ginger. But hidden among those vegetables was a criminal network responsible for billions of pounds worth of drugs entering the UK. This is the story of the drug empire led by Paul Green, and how investigators slowly uncovered every member of the organisation. The operation was led by Paul Green, a 59-year-old from Widnes in Cheshire. Investigators later discovered that between 2013 and 2018, Green was coordinating a massive international drug trafficking network. Green's role was to act as the central organizer. He connected suppliers in the Netherlands and Belgium with criminal distributors in the UK. The gang imported cocaine, heroin, cannabis, and amphetamine base oil. To hide their operation, the criminals created legitimate-looking import businesses. These companies officially imported vegetables and food products into the UK. But the shipments contained far more than produce. The drugs were hidden inside cargo loads of onions, garlic, and ginger. The strong smell of these foods helped disguise the drugs from sniffer dogs and customs inspections. Investigators later discovered the gang purchased up to 50 tons of onions per week just to hide the drugs. The investigation began on March 29, 2016. That day, UK Border Force officers stopped a van entering Britain. A drug detection dog alerted officers to something suspicious inside the vehicle. Inside the cargo, officers discovered drugs concealed among legitimate goods. At first, this looked like a routine drug seizure, but investigators began analyzing the shipping paperwork and phone records linked to the delivery. These records connected the shipment to several shell companies importing vegetables into the UK. Those companies would eventually lead investigators to Paul Green's network. However, at the time, police still didn't realize the true scale of the organization. Following the seizure, investigators began gathering intelligence. They discovered that the same businesses were repeatedly importing large quantities of vegetables from Europe. But the financial records didn't make sense. The companies were buying tens of tons of produce every week, but there was little evidence the food was being sold. Police began surveillance on warehouses connected to the shipments. Investigators also examined vehicle tracking data and phone communications linked to the deliveries. Gradually, several key suspects emerged: Paul Green, Russell Leonard, a transporter moving shipments, Johannes Vesters, a supplier operating in the Netherlands, Barbara Reinbout, assisting the Dutch side of the operation. Through surveillance, financial records, and intercepted communications, investigators began linking the suspects together. But the breakthrough came from an unexpected mistake. One of the smugglers, Russell Leonard, was transporting drugs in the Netherlands. At one point during the operation, Leonard parked a van containing drugs in Amsterdam overnight while he went drinking. When he returned and drove away the next morning, Dutch police stopped the vehicle. Inside the van, officers discovered drugs hidden inside cargo. The arrest provided investigators with crucial evidence. Phone data from Leonard connected him to Paul Green's network in the UK. Authorities were now able to track multiple members of the organization through communication records and delivery schedules. By 2018, the case had grown into a major international investigation. The National Crime Agency in the UK joined forces with Dutch law enforcement. The joint investigation revealed an enormous smuggling operation. Authorities believe the gang organized around 240 separate drug shipments into the UK. Only 6 shipments were intercepted during the investigation. Those 6 contained 450 kilograms of cocaine and heroin and 2 tons of cannabis. Investigators concluded that the total value of drugs trafficked could reach £7 billion. The gang had essentially become a drug import service for criminal groups across Britain. As investigators gathered evidence, They linked suspects using several methods. Phone and communication records, calls and messages connected multiple suspects to shipment schedules. Financial investigations, bank accounts revealed over £1.5 million passing through accounts linked to Paul Green and his partner. Surveillance police monitored warehouses where vegetable shipments were delivered. Identity fraud investigators discovered that Green and an accomplice had stolen a victim's identity to obtain a £262,000 mortgage on the victim's home to pay off drug debts. The victim's identity was also used to open bank accounts, rent properties, and run fake companies used in the smuggling operation. After years of gathering evidence, police moved to dismantle the network. Coordinated operations across the UK and Europe resulted in multiple arrests. Paul Green was arrested by NCA officers at his home in Widnes. During the search, officers discovered £10,000 in cash and financial documents linked to the smuggling businesses. He was identified as the leader of the operation. Russell Leonard had already been arrested in the Netherlands after being stopped in Amsterdam with drugs inside his van. Evidence from his phone linked him directly to Paul Green's organization. Johannes Vesters was arrested in the Netherlands during the international investigation. He was later extradited to the United Kingdom to face trial. Investigators identified him as one of the main suppliers arranging shipments from Europe. Barbara Reinbout was also arrested in the Netherlands. Investigators determined she helped organize the European logistics of the drug shipments. Because of the enormous scale of the case, the trial took place at Manchester Crown Court and became one of the longest criminal trials ever held in the UK. The trial began on April 26, 2022, with prosecutors from the National Crime Agency presenting evidence showing the gang had imported drugs into Britain between 2013 and 2018, using vegetable shipments as cover. The case involved 18 defendants, thousands of documents, and evidence from multiple countries, which caused proceedings to last almost 23 months. The trial finally concluded on December 2, 2024, when reporting restrictions were lifted. 18 members of the organised crime group had been convicted, bringing one of Britain's largest drug conspiracies to an end. Judge Paul Lawton described the harm caused by the network as incalculable. The main sentences included Paul Green, 59, 32 years in prison for leading the drug trafficking conspiracy. Russell Leonard, 48, 24 years in prison for transporting drugs and participating in the conspiracy. Johannes Vesters, 54, 20 years in prison after extradition from the Netherlands. Barbara Reinbout, 53, 18 years in prison for assisting the Dutch side of the network. Several other members of the organization were also convicted for their roles in importing and distributing drugs. For years, this criminal network smuggled drugs into Britain, hidden inside ordinary food shipments. Millions of pounds worth of narcotics passed through warehouses disguised as vegetable imports. But eventually, one mistake and years of investigation brought down the entire operation. A network responsible for billions in illegal drugs collapsed with 18 convictions and decades-long prison sentences. And it all started with a shipment that didn't smell quite right. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, make sure to like, comment and subscribe.